story appears ordinary until you see the core side of it.
And what you're looking for is the story behind the news.
We bring it to you from Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria.
Giving you all sides and political stories round the clock.
Every detail from the start line to the final whistle.
CoreTV News, expanding your view.
Welcome to CoreTV News on the Hour. I am Martins Dixon. A bus conveying 57 Chibok schoolgirls that had escaped from Boko Haram was intercepted by the military in Biu, Borno State. The chairman, Chibok community in Abuja, Sambido Abana, says the girls were being taken to Maiduguri for safety reasons when their bus was stopped by troops who assumed that they were the ones in Boko Haram captivity. According to him, the girls were those who escaped from the insurgents about a week after their school was raided, with about 250 of them abducted. Another Chibok indigent, Peter Ilya, stated that information available to him indicated that 57 Chibok girls who were being taken to their new school in Kaduna were intercepted by troops who became suspicious of the huge number of girls in the buses. He explained that the military escorted the buses back to Maiduguri, and residents who saw the convoy assumed that the 219 girls in Boko Haram captivity had been released. There were some reports in quarters that the girls who were abducted by Boko Haram on April 14 had been released. In a related issue, Nigeria's military authorities have denied reports of the release of some of the 219 abducted Chibok schoolgirls. Some online media had reported that the girls had been driven into the Maiduguri barracks, quoting the defense spokesman Chris Olukolade. But a few minutes later, the defense headquarters took to Twitter to deny the girls' release. There are indications that some girls were driven into the barracks in 2 small buses on Tuesday evening. A political analyst, Razak Olukoba, urges the Nigerian military and the people in the northeast to be more proactive and vigilant so as to prevent further attacks by the insurgents. Sorry, we apologize for the mix-up in that report. Members of the All Progressives Congress in the House of Representatives have staged a walkout after failing to get their colleagues to debate the controversial $9.3 million seized by the South African authorities. The bid by opposition legislators to force a debate on the matter failed after a voice vote went in favor of legislators who were opposed to the motion.
On September 5th, a private jet was reported to have flown into South Africa with $9.3 million in unused $100 bills on board. Now, members of the opposition in the House of Representatives are keen to investigate the alleged smuggling of the money.
3 persons flew by a small jet from Abuja into Lesfaria International Airport, northwest of Johannesburg, smuggled $9.3 million cash into South Africa, packed in 3 suitcases, and claims that the money was meant for buying arms for the Nigerian intelligence services.
But the motion still had to be subjected to a voice vote to determine the mood of the majority of the lawmakers on the matter.
I'll put the question on this motion because I've said we're not going to debate it for reasons cited by Honorable Kau. We'll not debate it, so I just put the question. If the motion is carried, we'll refer to the appropriate committees. My dear colleagues, those in favor of this motion, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. Then let's have it.
APC members were clearly not satisfied, and one after the other, they walked out in protest. The drama did not end here. The opposition lawmakers were quick to brief the press on what they described as money laundering. They also demanded clarification from the federal government on why the money was taken out of the country.
We are all aware that a week ago or so, the South African government impounded an aircraft purportedly belonging to a top religious leader in this country that was used to carry $9.3 million. The questions that we have for the federal government are as follows. Is it faster or safer to do an international transaction of such magnitude by ferrying cash across the continent or by simple wire transfer that can go through in a matter of seconds or a matter of few hours? If indeed the matter involves security issues, like the purchase of arms by foreign government like Nigeria, why was the South African government not brought into the picture beforehand? And how could the South African government be sure that the arms were purchased legitimately by the Nigerian government and not by the insurgents, when there were no officials of the NSA office or the Director of State Security Department that accompanied such money?
One of the grievances of the opposition lawmakers is that the presiding officer did not rule appropriately on the motion.
From what we saw on the floor, we felt that it was not fair, it was not handled as appropriate, because the deputy majority, well, some members of the PDP tried, first of all, for him not to raise the motion, even after the speaker ruled in favor of the motion, and it was not allowed to be debated. And it was called to question. And after the first call, neither the ayes or the nays would, if the speaker or the presiding officer is not clear by the order of the rules, we could call for another one, then eventually call for a division. But in this instance, we felt that majority of the members, some are distracted, some are just coming in and all of that. Now putting the question, we felt that the speaker did not rule as appropriate. The
walkout did not stop proceedings, and after concluding the day's duties, the House adjourned sitting till September 24. Pius Samuel, CoreTV News, Abuja.
The Nigeria Labour Congress says the military authorities should commute the death sentence passed on 12 soldiers to a more lenient one. The NLC acting president, Promise Adewusi, made the demand at a news conference in Abuja when, although the conviction was legal, it was harsh and insensitive, he says. The Congress also called for a more transparent approach in the ongoing war against terrorism and insurgency.
We expect the military council or the appropriate authority whose responsibility it is to review sentences of this nature to commute this sentence to a more tolerable or acceptable one. Our appeal is hinged on the fact that the brutal execution of the 12 will not restore discipline by fiat. Rather, it could sow the seed of a major security problem in the armed forces. Since the problem of corruption, pocketing, equipping, and treasury are said to be common to virtually all the military units or formations in the conflict area. In confronting our current security challenges, it is important that commanders earn the confidence of their troops and vice versa. Nowhere is cohesion needed more than in the armed forces, especially in conflict periods. This, in our view, will help minimize loss of lives and the suffering of reversals. In the light of the foregoing, we are urging the military authorities to commute the death sentence on the 12th to a lighter sentence. And as part of the process of addressing the conflicts and crises in our armed forces, we demand that the war be prosecuted in a more transparent, humane, and orderly manner.
The Senate has begun a probe into the $9.3 million seized by South African authorities from 2 Nigerians and 1 Israeli in a private jet. But it has also said the money belonged to the federal government. Chairman Senate Committee on Defense and Army, George Sekibo, disclosed this to journalists after a 2-hour-long closed-door meeting with service chiefs. He added that the Senate will address the media on his findings at the end of the investigation. On the death sentence passed on 12 soldiers charged with mutiny, Sekibo insisted that the Senate is not under pressure to interfere in a purely military matter. He, however, noted that the convicted soldiers could still get reprieve if their appeal succeeds. Senate President David Mark has denied making comments credited to him by the All Progressives Congress on the possibility of postponing the 2015 elections. He says in a statement issued in Abuja that he never called for the elections to be postponed. Senate President recalled that on the day senators resumed from their annual recess, he argued that the issue of elections should be addressed during a debate and not election matters. Senator Mark consequently urged the APC to desist from misleading the public. And a meeting organized by some members of the Rivers State People's Democratic Party to express their views over the party's decision not to zone the governorship position in 2015 elections was temporarily disrupted by a group of persons suspected to be working for the Nyesom Wike-led faction of the party. At least 9 persons were injured in the fracas that ensued when the group of persons stormed Delta Hotel in Old GRA, venue of the meeting, at about 12:30 p.m. and engaged in a free-for-all. The two groups threw chairs and other dangerous objects at each other, even as workers at the hotel watched in disbelief the action of the politicians. The faction of the state PDP operating under the auspices of the concerned Rivers State PDP stakeholders also held a press conference to call for the dissolution of the state working committee of the party chaired by Felix Obua. Calm has returned when a group of policemen stormed the venue and stopped the fight between the two factions. We'll be taking a break and we'll be back to continue shortly. Don't worry.
There is an Ebola virus epidemic in some West African countries. The Nigerian government wants you to be aware and watch out against the spread of Ebola in your community. Help keep our country safe and watch out for severe cases of fever, headaches, diarrhea, chest and abdominal pain, sore throat, cough, red eyes and bleeding from the eyes, ears and nose, especially when these symptoms are found in persons coming into Nigeria from other West African countries. Protect yourself. Wash your hands regularly with soap and running water or use a hand sanitizer. Avoid contact with the blood, urine, feces or saliva of animals like bats, monkeys, gorillas, chimpanzees or infected persons. The Ebola virus is deadly. Don't catch it, don't spread it. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
You're watching CoreTV News on the Hour. The defection saga blowing within the Labour Party cycle in the Southwest may have started a new round of crisis between factions in its Ogun State chapter. Chairman of the party in the state, Neo Oshoba, and a chieftain of the Bode Simeon-led faction are at loggerhead over whether former governor of Osun State, Benga Daniel, has left his fold for the PDP. Olajumoke Olatunji completes the story.
The Neo Oshoba faction of the party says it is not bothered by the recent resignation of the national chairman of the Labour Party, Dan Nwanyanwu, and the alleged defection of 2 of its national leaders in the person of Governor of Ondo State, Olusegun Mimiko, and the former Governor of Ogun State, Benga Daniel. The Ogun State chapter of Labour Party seems not to be moved. Oshoba, however, described as speculation and unfounded, the defection being banded around the party chieftains.
His Excellency Benga Daniel, the former governor of Ogun State, and the leader of the Labour Party in Ogun State has not gone to PDP. Neither has he gone to any other party. He is still a bona fide member of Labour Party Ogun State and the leader of Labour Party in Ogun State, as I'm talking to you. But that does not mean, however, that the party leadership and the ESCO in the state has not given the mandate to liaise and discuss with other parties in Ogun State that believe in our ideology, that's social democracy, and that believe in our project, AMG Amosun must go.
Despite the fact that some of its chieftains in the state claim Labour Party is devoid of rancor, the financial secretary of the Bode Simeon-led group, Abayomi Arabambi, stated that Daniel's defection is true and a sign that the Labour Party is back to sanity.
Decision, the Excellency Governor of Ondo State, is his self-personal decision if you want to join PDP. That's not the decision of the other 35 states of the Federation. You can see it is only in Ondo State they've been, happy on this issue. They want to join Labour, PDP. But one file remains, he led PDP to come to Labour Party. So whatever he felt, sent him away from PDP. If he felt the ground is clear, the coast is clear for him to return, that is on his own volition, and the people of Ondo State that are with Governor Mimiko. It does not affect us here. Regarding the outgoing chairman and the outgoing secretary, we also have it on good authority that they also plan to defect with him, but that is not going to affect us. OGD is no more part of Labour Party in Ogun State. It's another part of PDP with Prince Kashamu Buruji.
Meanwhile, political gladiators in the state have also begun to realign their objectives and position themselves ahead of the 2015 general elections. Olajumoke Olatunji, CoreTV News, Abeokuta.
Reactions have trailed the gruesome attack unleashed on the Ekiti State High Court sitting in Ado-Ekiti. The attack, which didn't spare lawyers, court staff and litigants, was carried out by hoodlums suspected to be party thugs. They disrupted the sitting of Justice Isaac Ogunyemi in the case deciding the eligibility of Governor-elect Ayodele Fayose. Rashid tracks these reactions and filed in this report.
The APC and the PDP have been at loggerhead over the inglorious incident. The APC is speaking through Governor Kayode Fayemi, who was on inspection of the damaged court building on Tuesday, described the act of the hoodlums as embarrassing, as the PDP denies that Fayose has hand in the mayhem.
For us as a state, we're embarrassed because in 4 years we have done nothing but to respect the independence of our judiciary.
The case that came up on Monday was disrupted by angry Ekiti people who voted voluntarily for Fayose, alleging partiality on the part of Justice Segun Ogunyemi.
Fayemi, lamenting the show of shame, describes it as a slap on the judiciary. The PDP, however, expresses reservations over Fayemi's utterances and called his reaction a planned scheme to scuttle the swearing-in of Fayose as governor come October 16.
Every right-thinking lawyer must see what happened yesterday as an assault on his own profession and himself. And every judge, too, must be worried.
Governor Kayode Fayemi earlier had a secret meeting with the state chief judge and Justice Segun Ogunyemi, where it was resolved that the swearing in of the governor-elect should be scuttled through black market judgment.
Fayemi also raises fear that Ekiti is about to be enveloped in another 4 years of crisis, a notion dismissed by the PDP, which describes Fayose as a peace-loving man who had no hand in the court invasion.
And I hope this is not the path Ekiti is returning to. A path of brigandage, a path of criminality, a path of one week, one trouble, in which thugs and criminals take over the state.
Fayose did not send anybody. These people, they came voluntarily, saying that their hope was about to be scuttled, and they tried to prevent that their hope being scuttled.
The police have meanwhile arrested 6 persons in connection with the mayhem.
In all, 6 of them were apprehended yesterday, and as I speak to you, they've been charged to court this morning, and they are facing the music. Let me also add that they have been charged to court on 5-count charge. One, it has to do with conspiracy to obstruct the course of justice, attempt to obstruct and prevent the course of justice, causing disturbance in the course of judicial proceeding, intentional disrespect to persons before whom judicial proceeding is being undertaken, and malicious damage.
The court invasion by the hoodlums will continue to generate more reactions within and outside the state as tension mounts on both sides of the divide. Rashid, CoreTV News, Ado-Ekiti.
Public and private schools in Abuja recorded low turnout as they opened for the new academic session. This was the situation at many of the schools CoreTV News crew visited. Pius Samuel has details.
This is the junior secondary school in Asokoro, one of Abuja's well-known public schools. Located in the High Broad district, the school has a population of over 200 students. But on a day schools are expected to resume in line with government's directive, this particular school looks empty. This block of classrooms are clearly not opened on the first day of the school year.
we have really resumed. The turnout is encouraging because I never knew that students will come. Some other states are not resuming. Some schools, like Unity schools, are not resuming. So the conflicting information is confusing to the students. But they came. I had at least close to 120 students today.
The resumption date had generated a lot of comments from some quarters. And on resumption, the first thing the few students that showed up were introduced to is the Ebola virus. These students say she has learned more on the virus in school today, and she is ready to take precautions.
Ebola is a virus that people don't expect it to happen. It is like it appears from nowhere. You can get Ebola from someone who is sick or dead.
Now, some parents are still not comfortable with the resumption date in the FCT. Some say no adequate measure is in place to check possible outbreak of Ebola. But this principal was quick to reel out some preventive measures put in place by the authorities.
They have really sensitized the teachers. One, we had some programs last week for the head teachers and the teachers. And some gadgets had been given to us, like the thermometer for checking the temperature of the individual and the container for running water. And some, what is it called? Sanitizer and washing soap, liquid soap. They're here with us. Then some flyers we are given, which we had already pasted. And we sensitized the students this morning that they should not be afraid of the virus. It's not something that moves in air. It's by body contact, fluid contact. So they should not be afraid. They should tell their parents that we have really resumed. Even we had some lessons today.
The government has already said there are no new cases of Ebola virus in Nigeria. And for the head of this school, it is a clarion call to maintain a high level of hygiene. Pius Samuel, CoreTV News, Abuja.
We'll take a short break and the news continues thereafter. Stay with us.
Glad to have you join us on another edition of The Political Arena, the most detailed and incisive political show.
If you are a sitting governor and the opposition is able to stomach structure against you, that means you are wicked to the people.
Give me 20 minutes to move or they will shoot me.
He has no chance for survival. If he likes himself, this is the best time to get out before he perishes.
The PDP as a ruling party has failed.
So anybody who thinks that government will fold his hands and allow miscreants to take over the streets of our own state and cause havoc is deceiving himself.
The good, bad, ugly and beautiful sides of the Nigerian political system. Join me every Sunday at 9:15 p.m. on CoreTV News.
The United States and 5 Arab allies have launched the first strikes against Islamic State militants in Syria. The Pentagon says warplanes, drones and Tomahawk missiles were used to target several areas, including ISIS stronghold Raqqa. Syrian activists say at least 70 IS militants were killed. Though Syria says it was told in advance, the US says it gave no warning of the timing of attacks on specific targets. The militants control large swaths of Syria and Iraq. The US has already launched about 190 airstrikes in Iraq since August. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad says he supports any international efforts to combat terrorism in Syria. And this wraps it up on this hour. Thank you for joining us. Have a good day.